She was wearing a pastel blazer she probably bought just for the photo op, and a title she definitely didn't earn when she strutted into the monthly HOA board meeting at 10:30 sharp and declared herself the new president of Willow Creek Estates. I just stared at my untouched coffee, already tasting like regret. Her last leadership gig had been running the social committee for her kids' private school fundraiser that collapsed after one season of gluten-free bake sales and passive-aggressive emails. Now she was in charge of our 247-home subdivision, the one with $1.8 million in annual dues, vendor contracts, and compliance issues that could bury us under city fines if anyone screwed up the irrigation system overhaul we were planning. I'd been here 9 years. Not flashy. Not the guy posting before and after lawn pics on the neighborhood Facebook group. Just the one everyone quietly called when the common area sprinklers started flooding the street or when the pool contractor tried to cut corners on chemical balancing. The guy who made sure our submissions to the city actually matched the permits and didn't trigger those nasty environmental violation letters that came with commas and six-figure penalties. My role was to stay invisible until the foundation cracked. And now something was cracking in real time. With a smile, a new PowerPoint template full of words like synergize our curb appeal and elevate community standards. I wasn't mad. Not yet. Anger is loud and gets you violation notices for your trash can be invisible for 0.3 seconds too long. This was colder. Like watching your own backyard get paved over while everyone claps for the progress. She clicked through slides filled with buzzwords and stock photos of smiling families who clearly lived nowhere near Willow Creek. When she got to the irrigation specs, I froze. She'd approved the wrong drainage architecture, completely incompatible with county stormwater codes. If this went live, we were on the hook for breach penalties that could top $200,000. Not to mention the loss of trust that would come next when half the neighborhood flooded every time it rained. I raised my hand once. Those specs don't match what we scoped last quarter. She waved me off with a sparkling smile. That's been updated. My team and I reimagined the community flow to streamline water synergy. Her team? That was her best friend from Pilates and a freelance landscape guy who lived in an RV. Neither of them could spell percolation rate if you spotted them the vowels. I nodded, quietly pulled up the old contract on my laptop just in case. After the meeting, I didn't argue. I didn't go to her or to the rest of the board. I went home, locked the door, and started rebuilding the architecture from scratch. No overtime pay, no approval, no fanfare, just quiet, correct work. I stayed until 2:47 a.m. Testing, deploying, simulating stormwater errors. By the time the sun came up, I'd patched the rollout, overwritten her specs, and saved the neighborhood from a lawsuit that would have buried a year's worth of dues in legal ash. No one thanked me. No one even noticed until the next morning when she walked into the same clubhouse beaming and said, "Crisis averted. Neighbors." I stayed up late and pushed a few changes. It's all good now. I blinked just once. She didn't even know where the HOA document portal lived. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from one of the longtime residents. "Thanks for saving our yards last night. You're a machine." I stared at it, then deleted it. I didn't reply because I already knew what was coming next. When someone like her succeeds, someone like me always pays for it. It hit around 4:12 p.m. on a Thursday. The kind of email that makes your stomach pre-clench before you even open it. Linda, the senior compliance liaison from the county, was on the other end, voice like wet gravel. "Please tell me this is a mistake. These specs can't be final." I opened the project folder, skimmed the attached configuration sheet, and my hands went cold. Authentication keys were misaligned. Field validation protocols missing. Worst of all, the stormwater compliance layer, the one we built from scratch to satisfy county flood ordinances, had been removed entirely, replaced with a one-size-fits-all module. I knew immediately what had happened. She'd sent the sandbox framework instead of the production schema. The wrong sandbox. A presentation prop, not even vetted. Linda kept talking, but I was already moving, opening logs, checking what had gone out to the other phases. It was the same botch configuration across the board. If they deployed using this garbage, it would trigger Clause 14.7 in our county agreements, what we call the nuclear clause. Minimum $200,000 per breach. These weren't test drives. These were live bullets aimed at every backyard in Willow Creek. I pinged the board group chat. No one answered. I checked her status. Out at networking drinks, wine glassed out of course. Meanwhile, her mistake was metastasizing. I wasn't even supposed to be on these accounts anymore. She had taken strategic ownership. Whatever the hell that meant, but nobody had stripped my backend access, probably an oversight, a lucky one. So I did what I always do. I shut up and fixed it. I started with the main drainage schema, rebuilding it using our original specs, mapping fields manually where her upload had corrupted the JSON tags. Then I moved to the secondary phases, who had already started pre-deployment staging. I had to spoof user permissions to override their pending update. Risky, borderline insubordination, but better that than having legal in my inbox by sunrise. By 7 p.m., the house was empty. I ate cold Chinese from the fridge while I rebuilt the deployment stack. At 9:17 p.m., I fired off shadow deployments to private environments I'd built years ago for testing. Everything held. No breaches, no leaks. The system pulsed like a heartbeat. Quiet, smooth, alive. At midnight, I rerouted all external county calls through my staging ID and reissued the updated specs. No names, no signatures, just clean code that worked. By 1:48 a.m., I was watching error logs flatline. Silence, stability. I could have logged the changes. I could have written up a post-mortem or dropped a line to someone on the board, but I didn't. I knew better. Around here, the nail that sticks up doesn't get hammered down. It gets a $500 fine for visual clutter and a certified letter. And still, for a moment, standing there in the low hum of my laptop fan and the glow of 3 monitors, I felt proud. I saved $200,000 and every backyard in Willow Creek with nothing but muscle memory and spite. Then I remember the last 5 words she'd said to me in that meeting. We've got it handled now. Right. Handled. She sauntered into the clubhouse like a damn parade float that Friday morning, hair still smelling like whatever cocktail bar she'd stumbled out of, all smiles and teeth. Crisis averted, thanks to a little late-night elbow grease. She chirped, sliding into the seat I'd warmed with 9 years of sweat and uncredited save-the-neighborhood work. No mention of me, no mention of the systems that were magically stable after her train wreck. Just a casual flex about rallying the board and putting out fires like a boss. Everyone clapped. Not hard, not long, but they clapped like seals at a dinner show, trained to applaud noise and ignore the diver bleeding in the tank. I said nothing, not even a flinch. Just sat there with a neat stack of field test logs in my lap. Every single fix time-stamped under my credentials, every single one. Didn't even bother to show them. What was the point? They didn't want truth. They wanted optics. And she looked great in a headline. By 2:11 p.m., I got the calendar invite. Board check-in, clubhouse conference room. 15 minutes. No subject, no details, just that familiar cold formatting you only get when they're about to put a bullet in your volunteer badge. The board was already waiting. Not smiling, not cruel, just robotic like this was their 4th termination before lunch, and they had a hot yoga class to hit. She slid a paper across the table like it was a receipt. Due to recent disruptions in board hierarchy and multiple reports of workflow interference, your position on the maintenance committee is being terminated, effective immediately. I read it twice. No mention of the SAVE project. No hint of gratitude for stopping a $200,000 flood. Just vague phrases like cultural misalignment and team cohesion concerns. My voice didn't even crack. So, saving the neighborhood was too disruptive? She didn't blink. We're not here to debate the decision. Right, I said and folded the paper neatly like I was pocketing a parking ticket. Can I at least finish closing out the active compliance calls? She shook her head. Security, well, the neighborhood watch will accompany you to collect your belongings. Of course they would. Back at my desk in the community office, the place already looked unfamiliar. Same plants, same screensaver, but off like walking into your childhood home after someone else redecorated. A neighborhood watch guy in a tight polo hovered 6 feet back as I slid my USB stick into the backport. I copied nothing. I just wiped one personal folder. A single .txt file labeled exit plan. Don't use unless screwed. Didn't need it anymore. I packed 2 coffee mugs, a photo of my dog, and a half-dead succulent I always meant to repot. My screens blinked once before going dark. Then I was walking. No farewell group chat post. No we'll miss you email thread. Just the echo of my own footsteps and a cardboard box filled with silence. Outside, the sun was too bright. I stood there in the parking lot for a long moment. Not angry, not heartbroken, just clear, cold, focused. They thought I'd vanish. They thought wrong. The first call came at 6:42 p.m. I was halfway through a gas station sandwich, sitting in my car with the windows down, trying to remember how to breathe like a normal human. Caller ID said Bill from down the street. Retired engineer, lived here 20 years. Tell me it's not true, Bill barked, skipping pleasantries. They didn't just fire the guy who saved our entire irrigation system, did they? I didn't say yes. Didn't say no either. Just exhaled slowly and let the silence answer for me. A beat. They're out of their damn minds, he said. We've been working with you for what, 6 years? You held our drainage together with duct tape and miracles when we migrated to the new county codes, and now I'm supposed to trust some influencer with a clipboard and a buzzword addiction. I still didn't vent. Just listened. My hands were steady. I think that surprised me more than anything. Look, he said, voice lowering. Off the record, if you weren't there anymore, hypothetically, and I wanted to keep our yards dry with someone who knows the system inside out, would you even consider helping us again? I felt something shift in my chest. Not excitement, not revenge, just ignition. I consider it, I said carefully. But I need to do it clean. No overlap, no conflict. Good, he said, because if you don't call me next week, I'm calling you. He hung up. I hadn't even finished processing that when the second call came in. Linda from 2 streets over. Then Derek from the cul-de-sac. Then Melanie from the pool committee. All in the same hour. Each one more pissed off than the last. Each one wanting one thing. Assurance that I could keep their backyards alive without the circus act now in charge. I told them all the same thing. I wasn't starting anything yet, but I'd listen. I'd think. I'd keep things ethical above board. That seemed to matter to them, like they were waiting for someone who still understood the difference between leverage and loyalty. By 8:11 p.m., I was in a diner off the highway, sitting in a booth with a legal pad and a napkin, sketching out what a one-man community continuity firm might look like. It didn't have to be flashy, just clean, just competent. A temporary consultancy, maybe. No contracts yet. No names, just a bridge they could trust while the ship they were on started taking water. I ordered coffee, started mapping out timelines. By the time the waitress brought the refill, I had a name, 3 service tiers, and a list of 11 homeowners I could call Monday without even looking up their back-end configurations. I'd built their roadmaps, their contingency flows, their compliance protocols, not the Pilates friend, not the branding task force. Me. And I wasn't angry anymore. I was operational. By Saturday morning, the rumors had mutated into something close to gospel. My inbox, still tied to a few legacy accounts, was a quiet mess of chaos. Subject lines like need clarification on continuity and is Mark still point of contact kept pinging my phone every few minutes. I didn't reply, didn't need to. The signals were clear. The blood was in the water. Some of the homeowners I hadn't even helped in a year were now reaching out directly through the neighborhood app, my personal email, even an old Gmail I'd used for fantasy football. They weren't angry anymore. They were concerned. Property values don't like instability. And nothing says instability like finding the guy who built your drainage architecture because he made the new president look like an amateur, which, to be fair, she was. By 2 p.m., 27 different homeowners had either paused their dues payments or outright demanded renegotiations. I wasn't tracking them actively. It was more like watching leaves fall. Quiet, predictable. I just kept collecting the calls. That evening, I went into my garage, pulled out an old file box marked LLC, do not open unless you're done, and dusted it off. Inside, in corporation documents, EIN forms, a template service agreement I'd written 4 years ago in a moment of late-night burnout and half-joking foresight. I scanned them in, updated the address, and filed activation with the state. $45 and a digital signature later, Pinecrest Continuity Solutions was alive. No fanfare, just function. I spent the rest of the night building a simple landing page. Nothing fancy, just a clean promise. Legacy system continuity for homeowners in transition. I didn't name names. I didn't pitch anyone directly. But I sent out 7 exploratory proposals before midnight. Each one tailored, each one clean. Not one violated my old volunteer NDA because I didn't need to breach anything. I wasn't offering trade secrets. I was offering trust. Sunday morning, 9:03 a.m. My phone buzzed with a call I'd been expecting. Gavin, the treasurer from the board. Voice tight, polished panic. Mark, I wanted to touch base. We're hearing some things. Homeowners are confused. Yeah, I said calmly. Seems like they're looking for stability. He chuckled nervously. You're not, soliciting, are you? I let the silence hang just long enough to make him sweat. No, Gavin, I said finally. I'm not soliciting anyone. You removed me. These aren't targets. These are neighbors calling a neighbor. More silence, then a strange sigh. Well, we just want to make sure there's no confusion about proprietary relationships. There's none. I cut in. I never owned the relationships, but I did earn their trust. And apparently they noticed when that walked out the door. He didn't respond, just said he'd circle back. He never did. By Sunday night, 33 homeowners had either paused payments or requested formal transition pathways, most under the guise of review, but I knew what that meant. They were waiting for the green light from me, quietly, patiently, like someone waiting for their real mechanic to come back from vacation because they don't trust the kid at the shop who just learned how to hold a wrench. The shift wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was slow and dignified, like a tide turning under the surface. By Tuesday afternoon, just 72 hours after the first call, my apartment floor was covered in printed NDAs, contract templates, onboarding packets, and enough homeowner logos to make a PowerPoint cry. 96 homes. Some were tiny, just annual audits and occasional support calls. But others, Tier 1, full-scale drainage tracking, quarterly compliance reviews. Together, those homeowners accounted for over 38% of the HOA's total recurring revenue. And now they were mine, or rather mine to serve on my terms, under my umbrella. No interference, no bureaucracy, no president with PowerPoint slides pretending to understand county-grade infrastructure. I didn't advertise, didn't post, didn't leak a thing. I just listened when they called, answered with confidence, and followed up with clarity. I gave them onboarding options. Some would come directly under my firm. Others preferred a partner network I'd quietly cultivated over the years. Trusted engineers, analysts, and compliance officers, many of them former board volunteers recently fed up with the same nonsense that pushed me out. I sent proposals, got approvals, and signed agreements. E-signature after e-signature arriving like clockwork. There were no fireworks, no blasting, just the low thrum of momentum turning into inevitability. At 3:17 p.m., I got the first screenshot from a friend still inside. Internal board thread. Top execs. The treasurer had posted a message in all caps. Why are Q1 dues metrics collapsing across entire blocks? Someone responded, 96 homes in 72 hours. Confirmed movement toward third-party consultancy. Some NDAs match his LLC. Then another, he had backdoor access to every compliance contract. Who signed off on that termination? And finally from the president herself. He was redundant. That one made me sit back and laugh. Not loud, not cruel, just that quiet, breathless laugh you do when a math finally comes full circle. Redundant. I've been called worse. But 38% of the HOA's income didn't seem to agree. Other leaks followed. A hastily scheduled all-hands meeting ended with more questions than answers. The president pushed a message about rebuilding trust and agility, but sources told me the room felt like a funeral. No one dared mention my name out loud, but I saw the subtext ripple through the spreadsheets. Key account notes now marked escalated risk, or worse, blank entirely. By dusk, I'd received 7 messages from board members who'd never even acknowledged me when I volunteered. Suddenly eager to catch up, touch base, or explore collaboration. I ignored 5, responded to 2 cordially, briefly let them feel the gravity of their own decisions. I didn't need to twist the knife. The beauty of letting people collapse under their own weight is that it saves you the energy of pushing. And this was collapse in slow motion. They called the emergency board meeting for 8 a.m. Wednesday. No one brought croissants. It was supposed to be routine, an adjustments and outlook session for Q1. But by then, the bleeding was impossible to spin. Nearly 40% of their dues portfolio had either vanished, paused, or sent notice they were reviewing vendor alignment. Internally, that meant one thing. Someone screwed the pooch, and that someone wasn't showing up with a deck of slides and a fake smile this time. I wasn't there, obviously, but the text started rolling in before lunch. One from a former committee member I trusted. President tried to pin everything on unauthorized knowledge transfer. Whole room went quiet. Apparently she'd walked in with swagger, tried to frame the homeowner exodus as a breach of protocol. He must have taken internal playbooks, maybe compliance data. It was the only angle she had left. If I'd stolen something, then maybe they could sue. Maybe the board would refocus their rage somewhere besides the name that tanked the quarter. But then the association's attorney spoke, and that's where the real performance began. The general counsel, a woman I'd worked with exactly twice in my career, but who never once missed a dotted I, apparently slid a folder across the table. Inside, copies of standard homeowner contract clauses. She read one out loud, monotone. All system designs, roadmaps, and support configurations remain homeowner-owned upon delivery. Homeowner-owned, not HOA-owned, not president-owned, homeowner. Which meant the moment I left, I took nothing but my name and the trust I'd built under it. No code, no service, no documents, just relationships that had always been voluntary. The room was silent after that. Word is the treasurer coughed. Someone else, probably the investor type on the board, asked flatly, so we removed the architect and gave the building to the influencer? No one answered. The next message I got was a screenshot of the president's face, frozen mid-stammer from a Zoom leak. Eyes wide, mouth half open like a woman who just realized her seatbelt doesn't work and the cliff is closer than it looked. From another friend, president not present. Word is she was told to stay home pending clarification. Clarification. No one wanted to say the word nepotism, but you could smell it coming off the meeting notes like bleach. She hadn't just failed upward. She dragged a third of the HOA's worth down with her. And now her defenders were cornered, suddenly allergic to their own decisions. I wasn't in the building. I wasn't on the call, but they were all talking about me. Some in anger, some in regret, some with that quiet terror that comes when you realize the redundant guy was the one holding the whole goddamn spine together. I didn't gloat, didn't post, didn't leak a thing. I just made another pot of coffee, watched the sunrise through my own window, and started drafting the terms of my next contract. The email came in at 6:09 a.m. Sharp. Not from the board, not from the president, a quiet board member, one of the ones who doesn't show up at block parties but somehow still signs the checks that keep the lights on. Subject line was simple. Conversation opportunity. Time sensitive. I read it 3 times while sipping burnt diner coffee out of a paper cup. Then I laughed. Not loud. Not smug. Just that small amused exhale that says, of course you called. The body of the message was cordial, even deferential. They'd been closely monitoring recent homeowner movements, understood the unique value I provided, and were prepared to discuss restorative partnership options. I knew corporate damage control when I saw it, but the key phrase was buried at the bottom. The board is authorized to extend a 7-figure reentry bonus contingent on your return to full-time leadership. Leadership. Cute. At 8:30, I took the call. Voice on the other end was smooth, expensive, cautious. He offered flattery first. How the neighborhood's reputation had been built in large part on the stability I'd engineered. Then came the vision talk. They needed me back to stabilize homeowner confidence and rebuild momentum. It all sounded so noble, like they hadn't buried me in silence 3 days ago. I let him talk. When he finally stopped, I asked one question. Will she still be there? The pause was everything. Well, she's been reassigned during the transition phase. Then I'm not returning, I said flatly. Not as an employee, not under anyone's thumb. But I will offer something better. Another pause. I'm listening. I laid out clean. Consulting retainer month to month at triple my previous volunteer stipend. No cap on billable hours, payment up front, non-negotiable. I'd oversee the retransition of the 96 homes if they wanted back in and review their architecture for long-term stability. But I wouldn't be on site, wouldn't attend board meetings, wouldn't answer to anyone internally. And most importantly, I wrote in a clause, a single line. At no point shall the individual formerly titled HOA president have oversight, access, or involvement in any system, process, communication, or decision within the consultant's scope of work. Call it petty. I called it insulation. He didn't even hesitate. We'll send the contract within the hour. They signed it before end of day. I didn't celebrate. Didn't open champagne. Just watched the agreement hit my inbox, thumbed through the PDFs, and saved them to a fresh drive labeled presiding terms. I wasn't going back. I wasn't rebuilding for them. I was managing them from above, from a clean distance on my time, with my price, and without their leash. And if they wanted to survive what came next, they'd stay the hell out of my way. The conference room smelled like new carpet and desperation, polished glass, filtered water, chairs that cost more than my first car. At the head of the table, a white-gloved auditor from the county compliance office clicked her pen and looked to me. Ready when you are. I had been in for weeks. The revised system sat on a private server I'd built outside their environment. Clean, modular, scalable, not flashy but airtight. I walked her through every layer, deployment scaffolding, dynamic config routes, rollback protocols, each step backed by the same specs they once called outdated. The ones the president had overwritten with buzzwords and bullet points. The ones that, had they gone live, would have triggered cascading county violations and cost the entire neighborhood $200,000 in compounded penalties over 2 years. She sat in the back of the room now. No slides, no blazer flex, no confidence, just silence. Her eyes followed the screen like she was trying to recognize a language she'd only ever pretended to speak. I didn't look at her. I didn't need to. The distance between us wasn't just measured in chairs. It was carved from every decision she'd made that told the world her ego was more important than expertise. The auditor nodded. This is clean, defensive architecture, minimal latency, compliant across 3 jurisdictions. One of the board members leaned in, whispered but not quietly enough. This is what she claimed to build. Another, without even turning his head, replied, he built it. She just removed the architect. No one responded. Not even the treasurer. He was seated halfway down the table, fiddling with his pen, unable to meet my eyes. The same man who once praised me in the hallway after a flawless city inspection for quiet excellence. The same man who let the president torch that legacy to protect the brand. Now he looked like he was waiting for a verdict in a language he didn't understand. The auditor signed off on the final page, stood, and shook my hand. If every system was this clean, I'd be out of job. I smiled. Just once. That's the idea. I packed up slowly. No rush. I could feel their eyes trailing me as I slid the laptop into my case and clicked the class shut. Then I paused at the door, looked once, not at her, not at him, but the HOA logo etched into the glass wall. And I said it like I was reading the final line of eulogy written in code they never bothered to learn. I fixed her $200,000 mistake. Then I let her make a $200,000 one all on her own. Then I walked out. Outside, the sun was bright again. Neighbors waved from driveways as I drove past. Real smiles this time, not the forced ones from board meetings. My phone buzzed with new contracts, new retainers, new lives I was actually helping instead of propping up a sinking ship. Karen's blazer was probably still hanging in her closet, waiting for the next photo op. Mine was in the trash where it belonged. In the neighborhood, it was finally breathing again, dry, stable, and free of the kind of synergy that only ever flooded backyards and egos. Some people build empires on buzzwords and blazers. Others just fix what breaks and walk away richer for it. I was the second kind. And for once, everyone else finally noticed.